Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Ivy Manor Music Show. This is your host, Mr. Brian Goff, bar manager here at Henry Hotels in beautiful Bar Harbor, Maine. I also handle all the live entertainment at our incredible outdoor venue, the Ivy Manor Inn, located at 194 Main Street, downtown Bar Harbor. I am super fired up for today's Ivy Manor Music Show. We have a musical guest joining the Ivy Music Show that I've known for about 20 years. He has deep ties to our ownership group as well, and we'll get into these stories in just a few minutes. In the year 2025, this man wears a lot of hats. He is a father. He is a husband. He is a business owner. And when he's not wearing those three hats, he's wearing the hat of a local rock star down at the Ivy Manor Inn. He's been with me all 4 years at the Ivy Manor Inn. I couldn't be more excited to have this next musical guest join the Ivy Manor Music Show. Without further ado, Christian Cuff joins the Ivy Manor Music Show. Christian, how are you?
Man, well, now all of a sudden I'm real nervous about trying to live up to the hats. I was just covering bald, so it's nice to know that they're projecting the way I want them
to. So good to see you, Christian. Always a pleasure. I got a number of things I want to get into with you, so let's get right for it.
Please.
Before we get into these different hats that you wear here in the year 2025, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you're from, and all that good stuff.
I'm from Maine, down in Bath, Maine, and I was pretty lucky to be raised in a pretty musical group. We had a studio. I had a stepdad who ran a music studio and bands and stuff. So there was a really cool music scene down there. But I've been up here since 2000, I think 2001, something like that. Met my wife up here, and we've been living here full time since 2017, I think.
So Bath, Maine, and Bar Harbor, Maine have been your two primary stops. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, Bath, like anyone who turns 23 living in Maine, you make a lot of stops outside, warmer spots, and lived in New York for a while, and lived in Australia for a little bit, and lived in Tucson for a while, and it's definitely. We did the seasonal thing for a long time, but home is always Maine. It's always going to be Maine.
No doubt. Bath is a super cool town. I've been there a few times over the years. Right off the top of my head, Burns Irish Pub, the Cabin Pizza Parlor, if you will. Pizza. And the big venue down there, the Chocolate Church. I know they do a lot of live music there over the years. Have you ever performed there, Christian?
I did, yeah. Performed. Chocolate Church was a pretty amazing spot for upcoming musicians in Bath. Like, I remember I was a kid when my parents played there, and you see when you sit in the audience and see your parents do something that would seem crazy, would seem like a mythical rock star thing to a kid. It all of a sudden becomes really attainable, and oh yeah, that's a thing that you can do if you want to do it. And I played there maybe a half dozen times. It's an incredible venue. It's amazing sound. It's an old Gothic church, so you get this history, but it's you know what it is. It's a lot like the Criterion in Bar Harbor. Like, you play the Criterion, it feels really, really special, but it also feels like you're sharing that space with some people, hundreds of years of people. It feels humbling, at the same time. Like, you get the clout, but you also feel like, wow, this is cool to be here. And there's a fun little all those old theaters in at least in Maine. I don't know if I've ever played a big theater anywhere else, but they all have a note, and they're all different notes. There's a note that if you hit on these old theaters that resonates from where musicians stand for hundreds of years, that it's like softened the wood or what have you, so that it'll resonate back and forth. And when you're playing one of those places through the show, you find the note, and if you hit the note, you'll just hear it kind of sing, so the church sort of sings back to you a little bit. It's a really cool experience.
No doubt. My understanding is it seats about 450 people. Most of the time when shows are performed there, they are sellouts as well. What's it like playing in front of 450 people, Christian? And is that the biggest crowd you've ever played for in your entire life?
I honestly could not. I mean, it's very cool. Like, when you play in front of a crew as a singer-songwriter specifically, like, you can find energy in a lot of different size crowds. Like, if you can play for 3 people but they're into it, you can lock into one of them. It's really, really fun. But playing the kind of, sort of sad boy acoustic stuff that I'm playing, when you start and you kind of almost, you want to like bring it all the way down, so you create this space to work with. So you bring it all the way real low. And it's I imagine it's similar. It's the inverse, but I imagine it's similar to what like football players feel when they play the big games at the big stadiums, where that crowd is just for center. It's the opposite. When you bring it down and you're like, oh, we're all here. We're all right here. And now I'm kind of the conductor to see where we're going to go. And you hit these I'm getting goosebumps right now, I swear to God, just thinking of those moments of like, you hit a note, you get excited. A lot of those bands, when you play like Montgomery Theater and I'm thinking of other like main theaters, you play with a bigger group maybe than you would usually play, so it's unique in that. Like if I'm on stage with 7 or 8 other people, I didn't get that all the time, or 9, 10 people, and you can kind of just step back and you're almost like you're watching the show with everybody else too, and it's great. I mean, I think maybe at the time I was a young guy and I was maybe taking it too for granted and thinking like, yeah, but I think back on that stuff often now and just think about, oh my God, that was an amazing thing to just be able to do that, when we did it. And because I'm from Bath, we knew that it was going to be a good show. We always knew that it was an incredibly supportive town. I mean, they're so supportive of anything that people are really willing to get out there and do. So I was able to bring other amazing art. Like the first time I did it, I brought this band from Sicily over to tour with us for that. I think it was an album release. It might have been before the album, actually, the first one. And this band, The Second Grace, was incredible because they're staying at my house. We're hanging out in Bath, and I got this. They were legitimate rock stars at the time. They were huge in Italy, and to bring them out here felt really, really exciting. And I'm walking around town, and I'm going to the coffee shops and what have you that we used to go, and just feeling amazing. And then I was able to use that. And the next time I released an album, knowing that it was like, hey, it's going to sell out, it's going to be a great show, I just started literally calling musicians that I was a geek fan about. There was a woman named Mika Pauli down in New York who I had seen play, and I was a nerd about how much I was obsessed with her music. And I was able to call her. I called her manager, and I explained the situation to her manager, like, hey, I got this series of shows I want to bring Mika to Maine for. And their manager was like, well, I don't really deal with things on that scale. Like, she was being nice, but she was saying, like, you're throwing pennies, and I don't really do that. Here's Mika's email. You can shoot her a line if she wants to do it. She's got the time or what have you. And so I did, and I mean, Mika and I still keep in touch now. Like and I'm still as much of a geek about her music as I ever was. But that, if I was from a big city, if I was from somewhere where you can get lost in the numbers, I couldn't have had that opportunity to, as a kid, be able to like, oh, I'm now standing shoulder to shoulder with people who I have not earned the right to stand shoulder to shoulder, but with the town behind me, it's little pond stuff, and they were just incredibly supportive of anything you were doing.
Wow. Very, very cool story for sure. Sounds like Bath, Maine, and the Chocolate Church in particular is certainly a big chapter in the book of your life as a musician. That's for darn sure. We talked about all these different hats you wear. I want to talk about each of these hats a little bit more in detail. Hat number 1 is you are a daddy. It's my understanding that young Everett has just turned 4 years old.
You did research.
My question to you pertaining to Everett, Christian, are: have you seen any signs of young Everett having any interest in music yet? Have you passed any talents down to him genetically? And now that he's getting older, what does he think of Daddy, the rock star down at the Ivy Manor Inn?
I tell you that Everett, well, to speak candidly, being able to play at a place that Everett can come, that you can bring a 4-year-old to and feel comfortable, and he can engage, and if he pops in, he wants to walk up and chat with Daddy for a second, like I don't feel like I'm throwing anybody off, is awesome. That's an amazing opportunity, and I've really savored that playing in the summers. Everett, I think the big moment I had with him, I think I realized this mic's escaping. It's like rolling down on me. Everett, when he was little, he was like 2. I was we're playing music. Nick and I talked for a month probably before we're like, what's the first song he's going to hear? Like when driving home from the hospital, what is it? What is the first audio that's going to enter his brain? What's going to understand about harmony? We decided Bill Withers' Lovely Day was going to be the one. It's a mistake. It was a mistake to do that one, because if you're going to listen to a song a million times, you want to listen to one. Lovely Day's only got like 3 notes in it, and it's the same 3 notes over and over. So I was like, oh, this is going to drive me insane soon. But he was when he was really, really young, I can't remember how I got to it, or I was listening to something and he stopped and he like walked over. I think I was listening to like a streaming service on the TV at home, and he like stopped and he walked over and he went up to the screen. He wanted to do it again, and I was listening to John Bonham isolated drum tracks. So it was just Bonham's playing. There was no music behind it, and it's it's amazing. It's an amazing sound, and he's an incredible drummer. Was an incredible drummer. And Everett latched onto that. He wanted to listen to it over and over and over, and we got him a little djembe. Actually, I apologize. We didn't get him a djembe. A good dear friend of ours, Joey Pirog, who is the upright bass player with us for years on all the albums and is super close to us. Joey got him a djembe and a cajon, which is like that box you sit on to play. He's got a little mini kid's cajon. And so Everett's definitely percussion. He likes singing. He has a guitar that he wants to play. He and I will sit down and play, and he's left-handed. I've tried to get him to focus on his right, because I don't want to have to buy him a left-handed guitar, but that's just where we're at. But he strums, he holds, he loves cooking. I think it's going to be his big passion first. But we talk a lot about, when we're driving to school in the mornings, we talk about we're listening to music and we're like, hey, what do you hear? What do you like? What instruments? And he loves drums and horns, those 2 sounds. And so we listen to a lot of like Rebirth Brass Band and like New Orleans second line stuff, because he definitely, that's what seems to really get him going. And what's crazy for 2, 3, 4-year-olds, he'll sit there and quietly listen to these songs. He doesn't talk over when music's playing, and he'll be able to pick out the different instruments. If you hear a brass line playing, he'll say like, oh, I can hear the trumpet, I can hear the trombone. He knows those sounds. He doesn't know a lot more than that, but he can pull those out. He can pull the drums out. It's pretty cool.
Sounds very cool. If he keeps going the way he's going, I might be booking him at the Ivy Manor Inn in 10 years from now. You never know. So
give him a shot.
Beautiful wife, Nicole, plays a big part in your life, not only as a musician, but all the other things you got going on in your life. Talk about Nicole a little bit. Talk about her role and her helping you balance all these different aspects that you have going on in your life right now.
Well, Nick, but I'll gush a bit. Nick is a staggeringly wonderful person. Inspiringly so, but also just I'm just shocked constantly by the choices she makes and the direction she takes, and the way she thinks about things is such a wonderful, and she's not naive or anything like that, but she just looks at things with such a graceful approach that I just always, I don't know, it makes me step back and be like, oh, am I a monster? Like, I wouldn't even have thought of this tone or this this approach, or think of other people that way. And she's just always amazes me that way. But Nick, more than as far as correlation with music and everything, Nick was my first relationship that didn't have anything to do with music. I didn't play in Bar Harbor when Nick and I met. I'd be here for a few months and I'd go play away, and I was actually pretty careful to not cross those streams at all. Like, I didn't want to. I wanted to, when I come up here, I wanted to be restaurants and work, and then when I went away, that's when I played. And I did that for years. And the year that Nick and I started dating was the year that Jake got sick, and so we canceled that tour, and then he got sick again, so we canceled another tour, and we just kind of never got back in. It just it was time anyway. Like, it worked out. It was okay. So the fact that Nick we didn't have that relationship where like we met, at a show or something, or we met like trying to be cool. We met just as people. We were friends, and that was always really a great thing. Like, it was very honest, great, wonderful relationship. And then she's the reason speaking again very candidly, she's the reason I play the Ivy Manor, because she's the one who's like, you gotta play again. You gotta start playing. She actually, she got Carter Ruff, who was this amazing luthier in Maine. He built this guitar, and Nicole had it commissioned for one of our anniversaries. It took 2 years for him to build it. But she was just like, she's been so supportive of me playing again. And it's, it never stopped when we had a kid. That's a big thing, to be like, go play, because I got to practice, I got to get back to it. So she's got double duty for 3 days a week if I'm playing something that week. So she's, it's not just the encouraging, some hollow encouragement. It's like, I want you to do it, and I'm willing to put in the other stuff that's going to need to happen to make sure this happens. And she knows how happy I am when I play. And like, it's cool to get fragile again and revisit, as the rest of me falls apart. It's nice to keep the memory sharp and, remember what I used to do.
Well said, Christian. Hat number 3, you are a business owner here on MDI. Tell us a little bit about your business, how long you've had this business, and how's it doing in the year 2025?
We have had, I think this is our 9th season, right? 2017, January 2017 we got it. So I think this will be our 9th season. And it's Sweet Peas Cafe. It's my brother, my wife, and I. It's a little farm-to-table spot that is constantly surprising me on how busy it is. And, it's great. It's honest. It's a very honest spot where we're not, I don't think that we're like a tourist destination. I don't think that we're trying to be a dive or a fine dining, or, we just sort of open. And Jake is my brother's an amazing chef. And so Jake makes this menu that my role has at times just been to walk around absorbing compliments for him. And, we all work hard, we all do our thing, but it's, I think Nicole she does the bar program and the cocktailing and the wines and things, and Jake does the cooking, and I kind of facilitate and do HR and things like that. And it's, I don't know, it feels at times that I just couldn't have been luckier with the team that I'm with right now, and I'm born into it and married into it. So it's pretty awesome to be able to be part of it, and just sort of benefit from their talents. And we do just like a lot of weddings and things like that. So I'm sort of defaulted into event coordinating and things. So it's kind of what you do too with these, and it's fun. It lets you dive into something and feel like every day is new and different, and try to catch the nuance rather than punch in, punch out. So and we're just opening now for the winter for the first time, and it's amazing. It's like a time capsule. I feel like it's the first year we opened. We're seeing all the neighborhood people again who try to come out in the summer, and it's Bar Harbor. It's an hour and a half, 2 hour wait to do anything you want to do in Bar Harbor in the summer. So it's nice to be able to see people on our own terms.
Such great news that you're open this off season. When season comes around, early May through the end of October, I'm pretty much straight out.
Yeah.
I don't get out much. I've been wanting to come down there, but just haven't had the opportunity to do so. Now that you're opened up here during the winter time, I'm certainly going to make an effort to get down there and have some pizza, have some beers. What are your hours of operation right now, Christian?
Well, just so you know, in the winter we can't do pizza.
Okay.
We learned a hard lesson, and we tried to open it a while back, and we thought we couldn't, because it's a big wood fire oven. We thought, oh man, we just can't keep the wood dry enough, or maybe the wood's just like ice in the middle of it, because we just couldn't keep these fires going hot enough. And we realized that it was a couple years ago that it was because the oven is so big, it needs to draft so much air and to stay hot enough. And when all the windows are closed, you can't get a draft like that in the restaurant. And then every once in a while, it would rain, or there would be a gust of wind or something, and all the smoke would come shooting out of the oven. So it was a real nightmare. So this year we reopened because we finally, I don't know why it took us this long to figure out, because we didn't used to be pizza people, but it was just one of those like, Oh yeah, we just don't have to serve pizza in the winter. That's fine. We could do pizza all summer long, and for the big parties and big groups, and in the winter we can go back to just being a little farm cafe. So it's a small menu. And they like it. Someone just donated. They did. It's a little farm menu, a few entrees, but it's tiny and it's perfect.
Sounds like a blast. Can't wait to see you down there. Hat number 4, local rock star. You've been playing music for a long time. You and I go back at least 20 years.
Yeah.
I initially met you in Bar Harbor sometime around the year 2004. A year later, I find myself working for the One campaign, where I volunteered an entire summer of my life to that campaign. One of the ideas I had to bring awareness to the One campaign was to put on some free live musical shows. You participated at least 2, if not 3 of those shows that summer of '05. And when I got music going here at the Ivy Manor Inn all these years later, I took a moment and kind of brainstormed to myself of all the musicians that I met here in Bar Harbor over the years. Because what I wanted to do is I wanted to build a very deep and talented roster. As I started to brainstorm, you certainly popped into my mind within minutes of thinking of these musicians that I met. Do you remember any of those gigs we did back there
Sure.
20 years ago at the One campaign? And what are some of your memories of that summer?
I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, because this isn't a reflection on the magnitude of anything other than just the depreciation of my mind. I think one that we played in Mid Coast, I think my stepdad played with me too. Is that right? Does that sound familiar at all?
It does.
Okay, so my stepdad Earl Bigelow, who he'd been in my life since I was 5 or 6, maybe 6, 7, 8. He'd been in my life for a long time, so there wasn't it wasn't like this was what connected us. But he's a brilliantly talented musician and a phenomenal guitarist and a hell of a songwriter too. It's a weird thing, I know I've shared this, and my wife and I have shared this kind of anecdotes before of because her dad is a musician too, and thinking that a famous song was written by your parents because that was the first time you heard it played was by your parents. And I have this secondary layer of finding out that it was one of Earl's songs. I know all these songs for the first time, a ton of Crosby, Stills and Nash, things that I always thought he wrote because that's the only version I'd heard. But then finding out oh, that was one of his. He actually wrote that song. Other songs and he's a phenomenal musician. But we never crossed that over. And I don't know if it was my age and maybe there was some immaturity or there was just timing. I don't remember what it was, but I remember he and I didn't play together. Not that there was a problem, but just it didn't come up. It was I think maybe when I started playing, I wasn't living around Bath, and maybe I was up here, and I don't know. But I think when we were in Mid Coast, that was we've played together a few times at this point. But that was a really, really cool night for me because Earl, beyond anything else, he is a phenomenally talented guitarist. And so to share the stage at that age, and I'm doing my best and I'm playing, but I'm standing next to him just in awe of God damn, he's smooth. His playing and his licks are just so characterized and colorful and smooth and effortless. He just runs up and down like he's playing a fretless instrument. But I know. So it was great, and I think that was you brought us in on that one. And where was the venue in Bar Harbor? Was it Criterion?
I don't believe it was at the Criterion.
Did you do the 1-2-1-2? Was it
the two that jump out to me was the first one that you were referring to. That was done down at Sea Dog in Topsom, Maine.
Yeah.
We had a huge crowd that day. We got a
That was
bunch
fun
of
as hell.
people signed up for that campaign, which was the goal anyway. As you said, you were there. Earl was there. You were kind of my point person. You brought in a couple other folks as well. I don't quite remember their names, but there was 4 performers that day. There was a young lady that was phenomenal.
I wish I remember who it is. Oh, you know who? I think Amanda Gervaisi played with us down. She was a down east musician. She was great. She lives out west now, I think. But she was a hell of a talent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was the big one that jumped off at me. I do believe you were part of the Belfast, Maine gig, which was down by the waterfront. I believe it was done at
Oh yeah. Oh, at the oyster shell on the ground place, right?
the
The
name
the three
slipping me right
something
now. Three Tides.
three tides. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That was
right.
super cool.
Yes,
Yes. Oh
yes,
man,
yes,
that's putting me back.
yes.
Oh, that was gone. That was gone from my head. I would have never remembered that. Yeah, three tides. They had all. There was. It was next door to the distillery Mass. Was it Mass Landing? Is that the Belfast? Or no, Marshall.
Marshall Wharf.
Marshall Wharf.
Yes.
It was at there, but the Marshall Wharf had this big, beautiful fireplace outside, and the whole ground was oyster shells, and
Correct.
it made it so when you stepped down, if you were tapping your foot, it almost had this like a shaker sound, like. So you could kind of like, and Joey was playing with us too, and you could kind of kick your foot down on the oysters, and it made this really cool percussive sound.
Great memories.
God, that was fun.
Certainly was for a good cause. Certainly was the reason why, you and I started a friendship and a relationship
Yeah.
back then, and it's come full circle to where you've now been at the Ivy Manor Inn with me all 4 years. It's also come full circle with the owners of our great company.
Yeah.
It's my understanding that you were once upon a time an employee with Christina and Peter Hastings.
Yep.
Can you tell us about that a little bit?
I was just talking about this last night with somebody who, somebody was asking, like, where I had worked. It was like we recognized each other and it was something. They're like, where did you used to work? And I was like, I was Leary's. When Leary's was, before Cody had bought it, and it was at, on Cottage Street. It was this tiny little, it was like a 17-seat bar with a little bit of outside seating maybe the first year. And the funny, so I'm not gonna mention any names, but I will. The way I got that job was amazing to me. This is the most Bar Harbor experience that I think I've ever had. I was working at a place. I just taken a job, and I was very quickly like, "Oh, this isn't gonna be okay." Like it was just a touristy thing, and I'm like, I'm not gonna like this. This isn't gonna work. And the owner and I had a couple of words. Nothing big or dramatic, but just kind of like, yeah, I don't think so. So I was walking. So that happened in his office, and I was walking out the door. By the time I got to the front door, my phone buzzed, and it was another restaurant that has some notoriety, and it was a good spot. I knew it was going to be a great job, and it was going to be a great moneymaker for the summer. And he said, "Hey, I heard you're not working in here anymore. Do you want to come work here?" And I was like, "Oh, sure, yeah." And I was like, "What do you want?" He's like, "Do you got blacks? Can you go get some blacks and come back? Like black, black shirt, black shoes." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll walk to my house." So I go out the front door and I walk. I lived down on the water that year, and so I'm walking to my house and I walk by the old Leary's on Cottage Street because I'm going to go duck down between that little alleyway. And Pete comes out and he goes, "Christian." And I was like, "Yeah." And I knew Pete a little bit, not super well. And he goes, "You bartend, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Do you want a job?" I was like, and Pete was amazing because they had him and Christina had just bought it, and it's like everybody else in the island. You're way busier than you think you're going to be. And he was like, I think he actually maybe he had hired me because he had hired another bartender, and it was like they wanted some training or something, or like cocktailing training or something like that. So I think it was not a full-time thing in the beginning, but then it became this. I mean, maybe I'm romanticizing it, but I don't think I've ever had a better job in my life. I mean, honestly, it was a little Irish bar that. There wasn't a trace of fake to it. It was just fun. It was locals and workers, and you would have all these different waves of guests where you'd have like cruise ship people at one point, and then you'd have tourists at another point, like week-long tourists at another point, and then the workers would all get out, and like somewhere in the middle there, the local lobstermen would all come in. And so you just saw this total. It was like geological. You saw these layers of the town every day. And it was just a one bartender bar. And the other bartender, this guy, Chris Lamb, is a lifetime friend now. He's actually on the road with Roger Waters right now. But he is a lifetime friend now that he and I, we weren't we didn't really know each other before that. But then I don't know, 6-7 years. It was a long time. I mean, for a bartender in this town, I bartended there forever, and it will, I think, forever be just one of my favorite jobs ever. I loved it. I had a great time. I loved the work. I still see people in town now that we own this place. I still see people that we don't know how we know each other, but I'm like, I'm sure it's Leary's. It's gotta be.
Very cool story. Here you are, having met me 20 years ago. Long pause in between that we had seen each other as I moved away as well. Here I am back in Maine, hired by Henry Hotels by our director of operations, Miss Elizabeth Bunker. Turns out the owner of the company where I'm hired at is Peter and Christina. Here you are having a relationship with them in prior years. It all kind of came together. It must be pretty cool to have it all come full circle, not only from our relationship, but your relationship with them. And now here you are, one of our mainstays at the Ivy Manor Inn.
I think, honestly, man, I think about this a lot. Like, this island gives you an opportunity every 8 months to reset. And, if you had relationships you didn't like, you shrug them off, and it's easy. And if you have ones you like, you got to fight for them a little bit. And the people in my world now that have maintained that, it's just quality people. I think I said this. I ran into Peter's mom on Main Street a couple weeks ago. I think I was just walking by, and I had to stop her, and I was like, I think about Pete is a very inspiring character for me when I think about what he's accomplished in this town without, burning bridges or getting a reputation or he's accomplished a lot. I mean, I think before Leary's he had I was talking to Peter's mom, so I'm framing it like Peter, but Peter and Christina obviously are part and parcel. I think they had a photo business, like taking pictures off the Margaret Todd or something, but really, a small thing. And then when they bought the bar, I think that was their first food and bev thing. I might be wrong, but I think that was it. And to see now, I mean, it's a few hotels, it's a few restaurants, and they're all good. They're all what I'd recommend to people. And to speak, not to fluff you too much, but to speak of the Ivy Manor, we were talking pre-roll that, the Ivy Manor is a place that has a spectacular reputation among musicians to play, because it's a fun. It's not like playing at a bar where you don't have to play to the crowd. You have to play to this crowd. It's every day is a little bit different, and they take cues from what you're playing. You get to play anything you want, and you get to. I've seen wildly different styles of music played at that place in a setting that most people would have taken the really safe route of throwing an acoustic guitarist who just plays instrumental and does sea shanties, or somebody who's just going to play top 100s or whatever. Like, you guys allow original music, and it's rarer than I don't want to say it's rarer than you think, but to your audience now, I'll say it's very rare, speaking as a musician, for me to be able to not play the 1 a.m. spot, but allow me to play whatever I want.
Absolutely. And back to the Hastings real quick. I know they're big fans of yours. Beginning of each season, I'll typically see Sharon and Mike. I'll see Christina here and there as well. And when I do meet with Peter, a certain common question seems to come up, and that's let us know when Christian Cuff's playing the Ivy Manor again. So I'm sure you've seen them at a lot of your shows there, and it just
actually. Sorry, not to interrupt, but we were talking earlier about again. I hope this doesn't embarrass me or you, but earlier when we were talking about doing this, I was saying I almost asked, what do you want to hear? And that's a really scary question to ask to anybody, because it would not be strange for even somebody who likes your music to not know a name of a song, or not, and then there's this pressure, this weird, like, they got to think of any song, and if they don't, oh man, you feel like a real piece. And Christina, I think, maybe it was the first time I played at Ivy, or I don't know, sometime when I played at Ivy, she was like one of the first people who like hollered out the name of a song to play. She's like, that's my favorite. I'm like, God damn, that feels good to have somebody know. Because I was saying earlier, like, My brother is an amazing musician, and I know his music in my heart and outside and everything. I know the notes. I could probably tell you the 4 or 5 names, you know, because they leave.
Very, very cool to say the least. Uh, what I know about you, you come from a family of musicians. You talked about Earl earlier, incredible songwriter and guitarist. Brother Jacob has sat in with you at the Ivy Manor Inn on occasion. Seems like
Mm-hmm.
most of your family plays some type of music or has in
Yeah.
their life. Can you talk about family members a little bit? What makes them different from one another in terms of the music that they like to play and what they like to present to the world?
Yeah, it's a. I mean, we were very. I come from a very, very, very cool family to be from. It's everybody has their own thing. My sister is a teacher. My older brother was, was a police officer. Well, I have many older brothers. One of them's a doctor in Germany. One of them's Jake, who owns the restaurant with me. I've got a lot, and one of them's a stage actor. I've got a lot of really amazing. Sort of everyone took a different direction. Music is certainly something we've all connected on. Everybody, I think, plays something. My oldest brother Josh played bass in a pretty established band in his time, and Jake and my sister Jessica played trumpet. Maybe she, but she, actually, to say, Jessica was one of the people when I was playing. First coming up, a big thing for a little brother. I'm the second or third youngest in the family. To win the respect of your family is the last nut to crack. That's to not be embarrassed to play. And I'm not. All of my family. My brother Graham is a spectacular drummer. Really, 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 really talented drummer. And my brother Jake is a multi instrumentalist. And they were my two closest brothers. And they'd always be jamming. We had a studio at the house out in the barn, and they'd always have people over, and they're always surrounded people. And I still can't. I couldn't jam with them if you asked me. Like right now, it's embarrassing, and it's like kind of a black spot on my soul that I just don't understand music theory. Like I can't. It just doesn't lock in with me. So I can play my stuff. I can play stuff that I've heard and I've played before. My muscle memory is great, but I don't understand. I swear to God, this is true. I don't know what keys my own songs are in. I've never known it. It's been told to me. I had bands that we toured with for years that there was a running joke that my upright bassist would have to like whisper the keys before every time we played with somebody else because it was an embarrassment. It's not something I think at the time I was like, yeah, man, I don't like subscribe to that. But it's always been an embarrassment to me that it's just something I can't do. And my family, there was always music playing. That my parents played in a band that played often in big venues, and they always had musicians around, and so you're exposed to this constantly. And I think that my sister Jess was the first person, and remains this, who was just supportive and allowed me to, didn't take a shot when she could. When your little brother comes in and he's feeling like a rock star, you can take him down real quick. And Jess, I think, understood that I was pretty fragile. Like, not knowing theory and not knowing, like, I had this imposter syndrome always. And knowing, like, if I'm standing in a group of musicians, it doesn't matter if my name's on the marquee. I'm the dumbest one there. I don't feel cool. I don't feel fun. I feel like one day the light's going to shine and I shouldn't be here. And everyone else on the stage should be. And maybe that was my talent, and the reason I was successful is that I gathered around me very good musicians. I mean, I played with incredible musicians that I had no business being in the same room with. But, I'd book the shows, or I did my work. I was a very hard worker. And Jessica, I feel like in the family, your mom is supportive and your dad is supportive and things like that. But I think Jess in the family was the one who would come to shows and be and make it okay for me to dive in, and make it okay for me to feel like I'm building something, not just like when you walk out of that door, you're nothing again. Like you're the kid again. So she was maybe one of the most sort of pivotal people in the family as far as my music career went. Ironically, she was the one who didn't play much. I don't remember ever playing music with her. We played Bop It, that old Bop It thing. That kind of counts as jamming. Uh,
How old were you, Christian, when you first picked up the guitar? And would you say that coming from a family of musicians is the primary reason why you became a musician yourself, or were there other outside influences and inspirations that formed you to what you are today?
I I think about this sometimes actually. I don't think. I mean, yeah. I think that I think that me thinking that I could be a musician, because that takes some ego. That takes like to think like, oh, what I have to say is important enough for a bunch of people I don't know to hear, and to say it not proudly necessarily, but like to say it loudly at least. Um, I don't think that. I think that I fought being a musician for a long time. I did theater and things like that when I was a kid. Everyone else played music. Everyone else was quite good. I played trombone when I was like in school, and I was able to play in the jazz band and play in the traveling band and stuff like that. But I was not good. I was able to do that because my older brothers were so good that I swear to God, I think the conductor just thought I was gonna bloom one day, and I just didn't. I don't know music theory well enough to be able to play music that like, hey, you have to be, actually, funny story. I was in the jazz band in high school. We were doing a competition down at Berkeley in Boston. So Berkeley School of Jazz, a big deal. Really exciting. We're in this competition for something, and I got this note at the end of the performance. One of the judges was like, "Hey, I love the improvisation, the bass trombone," because I had a double trigger trombone. He's like, "The improvisation is just really cool, man. You were just dancing around." And I swear to God, it wasn't meant to be improvisation. I just couldn't read the music. So I was playing. Trombone is easy, there's no keys. I don't have to memorize things. I can slide down until it sounds right, slide up until it sounds right. There's a little bit of aperture with your mouth, but not much. But I got this note of being like, wow, that was great improvisation. And I was like, that was me trying my best to play what was written on the page. And I just couldn't read it. So it might as well have been a blind guy taking a swing with a baseball bat. So it was, I think that the family was a huge part of me thinking that I could do it, that it was a reasonable thing to do, and that you can accomplish those kind of goals. But I think that I fought playing music for a long time because it wasn't a way to stand out. It wasn't a way to show my uniqueness. And when you're a kid, you show everything in the contrary. If everybody does this, well, I do this. When you're part of a 7-kid family, so that's I think it was a weird late bloom for me. And I think the style of music that I play was really based on that, because it became lyrics. It was all about what I could say and what I wanted to say, and the music itself was something that sort of took a back seat until I started meeting these other musicians who gracefully played with me. So they made it sound like it needed to sound.
No doubt. One way I promote you, Christian, is when I meet people and tell them about the music that we have played at the Ivy Manor Inn, and when your dates are about to come up to play some performances there, I always tell folks every song that you perform at the Ivy Manor Inn, you wrote yourself. I do believe you're one of the only musicians that actually does that. It's quite impressive to have at least 2 hours of material that you wrote yourself. Um, you've from what I know, have written 2 albums as well. Uh, we'll get into those in just a minute, but I just want to ask your thoughts and what goes into the decision to play a show of your own music, because there's a lot of other great music out there, but you tend to just want to go with what you wrote. Your thoughts?
There's a part of it that's functional in that I'm not. There's actually 2 covers that I have learned over the years. One of them is "I Can't Make You Love," "I Can't Make You Love Me," or "Can't Make You Love Me" by Bonnie Raitt, and I can't remember other people's songs. Like I to the point of being able to perform them authentically, and I don't have. There are musicians. There's a local music. Well, he's not local. He's used to be a Maine musician, but he's much bigger now. Actually, got to see him. He just played Red Rocks not too long ago. There's he adds something. He takes a song that he's heard and he plays his version of it, and it's great. He adds something to that song and makes it his own. I don't think I have the musical chops to like take a song that it would, maybe I could do a different version of it, and do it in my version of it, but it would sort of be bringing it down a little bit. So a lot of the songs that, like, if I'm going to learn a song that is similar to what I would do, then I'm like, well, why don't I just play one of mine? It's what am I doing? What am I trying to prove? And I'm lucky in Maine and in Bar Harbor in particular, I was able to, coming up, I didn't have to learn other people's songs. Even when I would play nighttime, I would play. Do you remember? God, was it Merlin? The British, his British bartender at Roops or Carmen's coming up. When I was probably when you and I met, Merlin was a sax player and he was a mean saxophone player, if I remember right. Merlin was doing the booking for them, and I would play Carmen's at night, which is it was a club at the time. It was like they DJ nights and it was a dance spot and it was a loud bar. And they booked me to do it. And bless my little heart, I would try to play upbeat stuff and fun stuff. And there's a bassist named Eric I played with, and we would do our best, but it was mellow music at its core. And Bar Harbor let me do that. What he would do is he would actually, you remember the Streets, that song, Dry Your Eyes, Mate? Dry your eyes, mate. I know it's hard to take. It's a really sad, mellow song. This was pre Damien Rice and all that. Singer-songwriter, shoegazer fad. He would, before I would start playing, he would take whatever. They'd be playing bangers and, Little John and stuff, and then he would just put the sad British music on for like 2 tracks. And you could hear like the whole event, the whole night change. And I played every week. And it got to the point where it was great. People would get excited. Dry Your Eyes would come on, and it meant that I was going to play, and I was going to play my sad boy quiet music, and they'd be drinking and we'd be laughing, and it would be very much like bartending. It would be saying things, but to to a bigger crowd, and it was great. They allowed me to play that, so I never had to build that catalog of the like, all right, I'm going to play one of mine, and then I'm going to pepper it in with a bunch of others. And absolutely nothing wrong to people to do that. I commend it. If you can take other music and make it your own. When I was learning and when I was performing, I didn't have to do it, and I found that it's much harder for me to learn somebody else's song than to play my own. Like I would be more nervous playing somebody else's song because you can mess that up. You can do a bad version of somebody else's song. You can only do your version of your song. So I can't really do it wrong.
Great points all the way around. I mentioned it earlier. You've written 2 albums to the best of my knowledge. One is called Silo. The other one is called Chalkboard. Can you talk about each of these albums a little bit, Christian? The theme of each of these albums? And are there any big hits or songs that jump off from each album that you really just love to play or just has special meaning to you in any way, shape, or form?
I was really lucky to work with a really wonderful studio on those albums, and most of the time I played with this Joey Pirog is an upright bass player and deserves more credit than I do, frankly, for the albums and for our touring experience and our musical performance. The guy is an absolute powerhouse of a musician and brought this authenticity to what we played. And as you know, a bassist, he's going to carry the root, but he also just carried everything. He carried the spirit of it. And we played with a cellist named Jeremy Harmon for we toured on Silo. We actually met Jeremy at the airport, at Logan Airport, on our way to Ireland, and gave him an MP3 player. Got him a ticket with us. He's an amazing cellist. I don't remember what had happened, but we met him in the airport at that Sam Adams, brewery place. We all had a beer. We talked about what we were going to be doing. We showed him the schedule. I put an MP3 player. There was a little Motorola before iPods and stuff. And he popped in his ear, and he was like, yeah, let's do it. And we got him a ticket. He came with us. We landed in Dublin to go do a show called Balcony TV, which was like a music TV show. And he had literally just learned. The funny thing is that we recorded these tracks without a cellist. So he learned all these songs and then just vamped. He came out and just improv'd everything, and that really directed our sound. Like those three, that instrumentation, and then for years, I would tour with a group of 4 or 5 people, and we would write on the road, and the songs would always, we really didn't rehearse a lot, which was a weird thing. Like we would rehearse for a couple weeks before a tour, and they'd learn the songs, but then every show the songs develop. Something new comes up, you're communicating on stage, and so it was a very live, and it was an energetic performance, and it was a lot of fun. But then we'd get back and say, okay, well, we wrote a bunch of new songs on the road, songs that maybe whatever. And so Chalkboard came maybe I think Silo was 2008 and Chalkboard was 2011, maybe a little bit before that, maybe 2010. It was, they're both, the way that I write songs is like something's bothering me, I want to write about it, and the song is done when I feel better about the thing that I was writing about. It's not necessary, it's certainly not a solution if it's narcissism at best, but it's when I felt like, okay, I have processed that, it has created some good in my life because there's a song that I'm proud of that came from it. And so luckily, I was bad at relationships and I made a lot of mistakes in my life otherwise, and it gave me fodder to talk about. So I wrote a lot for those years. I slept with my guitar in my hand, and just that was all I did. I loved it. So the albums were more about timing than anything. Like, hey, something's ready to pop. Let's just go ahead and get in there and capture it. And then you'd tour on it, for a year or two, and the instrumentation would change. We got to record with a symphony for Chalkboard. It was crazy. It was so much fun. And Joey, actually, to throw another belt for Joey, Joey, he would say that we composed the string pieces and the horn lines and everything, and it wasn't. It was him listening to me try to, like the way I listen to Everett describe a character in a TV show, I would be describing to him the sound that I'm looking for, or how what I'm hearing in my head, and he would have to interpret that into actual written music, and it was amazing, man. It was amazing process to watch an actual musician create that stuff, and then to be part of it, and to be, I told them both for years. Everyone I've ever played with, Dan Boyden is a drummer down in Portland who actually, shameless plug, Finest Kind Music is Dan Boyden's project, and if you want to hear some of the best of what's coming out of Maine, those guys are putting, it's Stu Mahan, Dan Boyden, there's Max, they're like, I'm trying to think of some of the other players that are jumping in. I'm going to embarrass myself, so I'm not going to, just go ahead and cut that out. But it's Max Cantlin, but I'm trying to think of the keys. Tyler Kist, that's Quist. These guys are so good. I mean, like a level, New York level, anywhere in the world where the best musicians congregate, these guys would stand up. They are absolutely incredible. And they play together as this backing session and just bring these amazing front people in to play. And I mean, you cannot hear a bad track with them playing. And Dan was lucky. I mean, I was lucky enough for Dan to grace us with his presence for 4 or 5 years. So anyway, that group together really dictated the sound. And I don't remember where I was going with all that. I'm just fluttering now thinking about all these unbelievable experiences I got to have with these guys. It just blows my mind still.
Sounds like they were a big part of it. Sounds like they were not only performing instruments on these 2 albums we just talked about, gave you ideas, gave you inspirations, and it sounds like they were a big part of these projects. And both are great listens, folks. If you haven't heard Silo or Chalkboard, we could certainly get you a copy. Send me a instant message through Facebook, or if you're down at the Ivy Manor in the summer, we will certainly get you a copy of one of those 2 albums as well. You just kind of mentioned it. I was going to go into your trip to Dublin. Here you are, having written a bunch of songs in your lifetime. You literally took these songs and records on the road. Literally, here you are taking your music over to Ireland. What are some of the stops that you made in Ireland, Christian, and were there any other countries that you visited that you shared your music with?
I'll see if I can do this. We played in England, Ireland, Scotland, Spain, Sweden, Germany, Italy, Slovenia. I never played Switzerland, I don't think. Amsterdam, or not Amsterdam, Netherlands, Belgium. Actually, and the fun thing is I never played Asia, but the fun thing is that I actually, I see some of these people. We just were in Italy. Nicole and I went to Italy, and one of the bands that we played with on tour, we got to sit down. I met her, her daughter, and I got to meet one of the guys. He was the drummer for the band that we played with. It was Julia Sarno's band called Un Passant, and he doesn't speak any English, and it didn't occur to me that he never spoke any English. Maybe a few words, but we are close. We've been close for 15 years at this point. And I swear to God, it did not occur to me that he doesn't speak English. We just have always connected, and we spent so much time together that we had Nicole's going to turn the lights on. Nick and Everett just walked in, so you'll hear my little man.
A little too bright.
Yeah, a little too bright. Bring him down just a little bit. There. That's good right there, right? Is that good?
That looks good.
That's good. They some of these people in there, a venue owner in Belgium that we're lifetime friends now. And it has nothing to do with music for years. For 10 years, it has nothing to do with music. Just lifetime friends. And it makes sure when Nick and I got married, it was like one of the first times that everybody was in the same spot. There was people from all these different countries, people from New York, people from Bar Harbor, from Bath, all standing together. It just blew my mind. It was, the world got so small, and that was all music. There was nothing else that got me all that.
Sounds like we could do a show just dedicated on your experiences over in Europe.
We could do a show that I could just sit there and list some of the most amazing musicians in the world that we have been graced to spend some time with, and the ones you never hear about. They're just one of the billions of great artists that are running around playing amazing music that doesn't get picked up anywhere, but doesn't take a bit away from it.
No doubt. That sounds like a great experience, a lifetime of stories, and hopefully you and I will be able to share a beer sometime in the future and get a little bit more detail, because it certainly perked up my interest. That's for darn sure. Mm-hmm. Another way I describe you to our folks that come to the Ivy Manor Inn to hear your show and may never have heard you play before, I always talk about your passion. You're a very passionate individual with each of these songs. You're putting your heart and soul into it. You're making us feel the emotion of the song. It certainly had that effect on me, as well as other folks that have been at the Ivy Manor Inn listening to your live shows. Where do you think this passion comes from, Christian? Because it is very noticeable, and like I said earlier, when you play a song, you're not only listening to it, you're feeling the song as well.
Honestly, man, that's great to hear. I really appreciate that. That's I think that sometimes it's hard to drop back in, and without fluffing it too much for you, a lot of that's your crowd. You got the people that are there are engaging, and you earn them. They're walking by, they're stepping in. It's a beautiful venue, so that that helps, but it's not a ticketed show that I'm sitting there doing promo and like trying to make a pitch. So there have been times where it's the third or the fourth song before I'm like, oh yeah, I love this. It takes me a minute sometimes to remember, but then you're playing a song that you remember where you were when you wrote it. You remember what it smelled like in that room. There was a song that you and I were talking about earlier that I wrote in Spain with this guy, Paul Martin, who was one of the musicians we were touring with. And I was in his apartment, and the song will always be in his apartment. That's where I was. That's where I could smell to see the color on his wall and stuff like that. And when I remember those little things and you get those sense memories, you're back. And then there's the emotional connection of what the state you were in. And like I said, a lot of these songs were about resolution in some way or another. So when you're playing at its best, the best you can hope for is you're reliving that resolution phase. You're reliving the crisis to the resolve. And it's that, the major minor key, it's the up and the down of the song, and it is cathartic every time. There isn't and maybe the energy is coming from something else. Maybe it's something new that's happened to me recently. Maybe it's I don't know. Maybe it's something I'm remembering that never was resolved, and every time you do it, you take a little piece back. I don't know, but it's there in its best. There are times, and if I played if I played 3 times a week and it was my only job, I would lose that, I'm sure. I wouldn't be able to maintain that. I wouldn't be able to dive in, and maybe, God forbid, I'd resolve all those problems one day and I wouldn't have to ever play again. But for me now, I really only play at your place. So I got plenty of juice in the tank to dive back in. And like there's people it's been a long time since I played and felt like a rock star, not, I don't know, it's embarrassing even to say, but it's a long time that I've identified as a musician like that. And when somebody comes to the Ivy Manor and is like, oh, I know this song, or I know something you did, or I have your album and blah, blah, blah. It's crazy. It's crazy nostalgic, and it's crazy exciting, and it's embarrassing how important that is to me. But it gets the energy going, and I'm old now, so it's not 1 a.m. I'm still feeling good in the afternoon, and yeah, I feel like you got to earn it with the crowd every time.
No doubt. Well said. I know you're engulfed in your productions. You're not over, looking at me where I'm working during these shows. But I think if you did peek over, you'd see me with a smile from ear to ear. Because here I am working. I'm outdoors. I'm in a beautiful environment. I've got a Christian Cuff show going on live. Lots of happy people coming and going, giving lots of compliments as they're leaving. Very appreciative of what we got going on there. And like you said earlier with your job with Peter all those years ago, me too. I think this is probably the best job I've ever had in my life.
That's good to hear.
And all of these things that I just mentioned, including live performances like musicians like yourself, certainly add to that as well. Coming up on the top of the hour, Christian, would you be so kind to give us a sample of your music? Some folks may be watching the show that have never heard you perform before, and I think It'd be great to give them a preview of what they could expect to see at one of your shows here in the upcoming season.
Yeah, absolutely. How's the level on the guitar? Spain spins backwards, got the whole world in reverse. 2 head beams, they burn behind the papers peeling in a hotel pastel, green through some golden light. So 6 gone from a soft pack, but I never smoke back home. But out here, who's to know that on my own, my home is close to come, boys. Why noise? Why? So we set built to shame through some chorus name while I wait for that Jane to show to the corner stage. It's my favorite game, the same that I pretend to be above. On my own, my home is close to come, boys, and I am on this paper throne. I'm comfortable when you're gone. I'm out of tricks with my card house confidence, been built on tables that are still stuck in this, and I'm out of all that confidence, steeping in the warm waters of my sober fits, getting me out. Wow, wow. It occurred to me very quickly into that I didn't move back from the mic, so I don't know what you can use of that. It might have just been peaking the whole time.
Sounded great on my end.
Oh, good.
Folks, you saw the passion right there. That's what I was talking about. Picture that for 2 straight hours. That's what you'll see at the Ivy Manor Inn. Christian's been with us all 4 years. He's certainly one of our Ivy stars, that is for sure. He's been a big part of what we've done for the first 4 seasons. Last year was our best season yet. Looking to make 2025 even better, and Christian Cuff will be a big part of that. That is for sure. Christian, thank you so much for joining the show. I really do appreciate it. I'm also very thankful to you for your contributions to the Ivy Manor Inn over the last 4 years. Please. And I'm looking forward to many more, that is for sure. So thank you.
Of course, man. Thanks so much, Brian. Appreciate
Thank you. Folks, have a great night. This is the Ivy Manor Music Show. He's Christian Cuff, Ivy Star. This is Brian Goff, bar manager, Henry Hotels. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much and have a great night. Bye-bye.